The security police operated regionally. So every region would have its John Vorster Square, but there's no question for the previous Transvaal period, this was the headquarters. This is where the heavy action took place. But you can torture somebody off a car battery anywhere, and that was certainly what they did. You know, people would be taken to places that we now know were vlugplaas, but they could do it anywhere. You could experiment with your battery in the bush. And then I think in the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and in KZN, there were headquarters that had similar reputations and functions. You must remember, after Biko, they didn't want to leave physical injuries, and they scaled up their methods to do things like electrodes. Electrodes on skin, you can see the burns, but if you put it in somebody's anus or something like that, you can't. Or more things like sleep deprivation, squatting, cold water, suffocation plus electric shock. Anybody who's been through that describes it as a near-death experience, and that's also where people die. So you bagged with a wet bag, so you can't breathe properly, then shocked, and you breathe in and the wet bag suffocates you. And people like Eric Mtongo was suffocated with a bicycle tube. So you know, you can torture people very easily anywhere. So I think they learned also to take their torture to places that were less identifiable, because so much had been identified with this area. Now, a lot of those interrogation teams, even in '82, they weren't young. You know, there were youngsters coming up, but the core interrogators, a lot of them were 50. So those people are dying. And you must remember, in the '80s, they were heroes. They were competing to be recognized. I think for them, things like their families finding out that they were torturers. They were doing what the country asked them to do. You've got a lot of people who were traumatized on the border. So there's a lot of damage in those people that isn't recognized. And then they certainly feel that they were sold out by their seniors because they were fingered, and their seniors have refused to admit that it happened, or they're claiming that it was rogue policemen who were doing it outside of instructions. Take someone like Erasmus. Those people who were involved in those things at that stage, who've now been dumped with the guilt and the responsibility and the public profile, they start turning to their ex-detainees for support, because the ex-detainees are the only people who really understand what it's about. It's very interesting stuff, where the perpetrator looks to their victim for recognition of what it was about. And you see, I think the detainees were clearer than the people outside what was going on. It was a political battle, and that was the sharp edge of it.